Hey guys, LC Holt here. This is my update for the week of May the 13th. Today we're going to be talking about some urban legends. Joining me as usual, Ryan Rayonec. How's it going, man?
What's happening? Just waiting for UFC to start, basically, and you're helping me.
Well, I'm glad to help you, kill the time. And Zach, how are you, Mr. Zach Myers?
I'm doing good, man.
Now, today we're going to do something a little bit differently in terms of the running order. This is going to be a little bit like a game show, just hopefully a lot less cheesy. We got a series of envelopes here.
We've already got there now. We've already fucked up on that level.
Yeah, we got a series of envelopes. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 urban legends. I wrote these suckers down on some cards. I stuck them in these envelopes. I threw the envelopes up in the air. Then I reshuffled the envelopes and I wrote numbers on them. So I don't even know what urban legends are in these envelopes. So what we're going to do is if I pick it, it would seem a little weird because you could say, well, you know what's in there. So I'm going to let Ryan and Zach pick the numbers. And that's the order in which we're going to do these urban legends. We're going to tell the urban legend and then discuss maybe how it started and just the overall sort of idea of whatever the story is. So, Ryan, you want to pick the first urban legend 1 to 6? What you
got? Which one do you want the most, Zach?
I don't know. I don't know what's in them. Do you?
No, I'm going. No, I'm talking about whatever number he wanted. I was going to consider it. 6.
All right. Urban legend number 6. So now we're going to find out what's in there. Okay, urban legend number 6 is called Don't Turn on the Lights.
Ah, that's hilarious.
And your prize for today is, no, I'm just kidding. Zach, I think you're the one that has Don't Turn on the Lights, right? This was one of the ones you wanted to do?
Yes.
So enthrall us with this urban legend.
Okay. Well, it starts a long time ago in college. 2 girls were roommates. One's a party girl and one's a brain. One night, they both went out. The party girl went to have a few drinks and to meet some guy she met on the internet. The brain went to the library. But when she got back to the dorm room, she noticed the lights were off, and she heard her roommate with someone, which she assumed she was having sex. So she didn't turn on the light, but she was about to. She goes to
Are you in a plane? There's a strange sound going on in the background.
You know, I think there's a plane going over here. Let me close the door.
Okay, I was about to say.
It sounds like it's the president for.
I was like, geez, it's like what a. Zach broadcasting from an airport.
I didn't want to interrupt, but on my end, I'm like, shit, I'm gonna need him to repeat like 3 sentences.
Okay, so we have a girl, a college girl. One is a beauty queen, and another is a brain. They meet somebody, and then they go, and the brain listens to her roommate apparently having sex. Continue, Zachary Myers.
So she almost turns on the light, but because she hears them, she doesn't turn on the light. And she goes to sleep. Well, she wakes up the next morning to find her roommate gutted on the bed. And she looks over at the wall, and in the roommate's blood, it says, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?"
Wow. I've heard this one. This was actually included in a movie called Urban Legend, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Danielle was in that scene. I remember Danielle Harris from the Halloween films. Okay, so
it's been around since like the early '80s. The story has. There's no proof that it actually happened, other than it just being a terrifying fucking story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So that's a relatively plausible story. Do you think that it has any basis in truth?
Yeah, I mean, it could. I mean, a lot of urban legends do come from truth. A lot of them are just made up bullshit. But I mean, it could happen. I mean, things like that happen all the time.
What'd you say, Ryan?
Mormons.
Mormons.
Allegedly.
Scientology.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. Would we call that an urban legend? No, that's more of
I think it's true. I mean that I've seen their ads.
Okay, well, before I start getting death threats from either one of those groups, let's go back to "Don't Turn on the Lights." That because yeah.
No, I agree, but still, they exist.
But I mean, it's something. I mean, it's serial killers. Do this kind of stuff all the time. That's why I think it's plausible. But I mean, I'm on the fence. It could also just be a bullshit story. But either way, it's still a good story.
It is a good story, and it's a good story for a movie. I can understand why they put it in there. I remember when that Urban Legends movie came out, I was like, well, that's a really cool concept, because there are so many. And you can pretty much just take your pick, and structuring the script for the film is pretty simple because you just pick the ones you want to do and just line them up, and then have characters that the various stories could happen to.
I remember actually seeing it when it was in the theater. I've never seen it since, but I remember seeing it in the theater it was a long time ago. My God, long time ago.
Yeah, this was late '90s. What'd you think of it?
I remember when I watched it, I liked it, but I was also, I was also like a teenager, so I don't know if I like what I thought.
Yeah, and they made it.
I haven't seen it since that day. I remember I don't remember wasting my time.
Yeah,
but
I remember there was a couple different sequels too. The first one had the guy that the killer was dressed like he was a fencing pro or something because he had the fencing like grater on his face.
Oh yeah, that was the second one.
Yeah, because they tried to kind of make it more of a all the serial killers in movies have to wear or have some sort of a unique mask or something. But I think the first one was a bit more interesting because it was just a series of urban legends come to life, rather than trying to create a franchise. But we all know that.
I like the killer movies without the mask. Look at No Country for Old Men was great.
Yeah.
I think it could be a lot more, authenticity if someone just looking in the eye, instead of, hiding behind whatever. But at the same token, sometimes it works, like Jeepers Creepers, that works, Freddy and, Jason, the famous ones, it works for their genre. But I think a mixture sometimes is good. I think, you go too far to like, oh, this guy has to wear a scary mask or this and that. I think it can be, create a better character without using something sometimes.
Well, I know one movie where it worked beautifully. Yeah. Well, anyway, I'll leave that there. Now, we'll go on to the next.
Oh man, sorry. I wouldn't even think. I'm not even busting your butt. I wasn't even thinking about. I wasn't even thinking about that.
It's all good, man. No, but
it was like really yeah. That wasn't like a jabbery thing. Fuck.
I totally get what you're going with, though. But I agree for the most part. Zach, pick a number, any number.
4.
4. Okay. Number 4, urban legend number 4, and that is, and the Oscar goes to. The Oscar goes to High Beams. The Oscar goes to the convenient. All right, I'm covering it up with my fingers. High Beams. Okay, yeah, High Beams is one of the ones I have. Now, this is an interesting urban legend because there are actually 2 very distinct versions of this that are both called High Beams. So I'm going to tell the first version, and then we'll talk about the second version, okay? In the first and probably most famous version, it's about a woman who's driving in a car at night. And she's driving along, she's alone, she's going home. It's the middle of the night or early morning hours. Another car pulls up behind her and starts flashing their lights. And she gets kind of freaked out. And this car keeps like speeding up on her. And every so often it'll flash its lights again. And she's like, what's going on? So she gets, scared. She doesn't have a weapon in the car. So she's like, I got to get somewhere. I'm going to boogie on over to the police station. So she whips into the police station and tries to run inside. But before she can get inside the police station, the man who was flashing his high beams at her has followed her in, jumps out of his car, runs to hers, rips open the back door and yanks a crazy person out. And come to find out, this good Samaritan with the high beams was trying to flash and tell her that every so often a maniac with a knife was rising up in her back seat trying to stab her. Every time the killer would rise up, he'd flash the high beams. And then the killer would duck back down. So the guy was trying to save her. And that's a classic urban legend sort of scenario, because you always have this kind of like Twilight Zone-y twist of an ending in a lot of these urban legends. There are a couple, like I said, there are two distinct versions of that. There are also variations on the story about the girl driving at night. One of the variations, which I think was used in that movie, Urban Legend, has the exact same thing happening, but instead of pulling into a police station, she pulls off into a gas station, and the car that was following her keeps going. And a gas station attendant comes out, and he's kind of like creepy, you know, like not the kind of guy you want to mess with at night if you're a young girl alone in a car with no weapons. And he walks over to her, and it's a self-service type gas station. So we know that this urban legend took place way off in the past. And she gives her credit card after he pumps the gas. And he's like, you know, I really need you to come inside because we need the credit card machine, blah, blah, blah. So she's like, I don't really want to get out of my car and go into this gas station with this weird looking man. But in the story, she does, tentatively. And when she goes inside, the guy tells her, do you realize there's someone in your back seat? And the girl goes, what? And it's like that, the Hitchcock shot where the background flies away and she comes forward. And then you realize that the attendant, who was the creepy one, is actually trying to save her because he spotted when he was pumping the gas a killer crouched down in her back seat. That was used. Actually, that's been used in a couple different movies. I remember it was in Urban Legend, the movie, because Brad Dourif played the creepy gas station attendant. Now, again, it goes back to the idea of the person you think is the villain isn't really the villain. It's actually somebody else. And I think as we go through these urban legends, you'll see that theme continuing in a couple of them. Now, before we discuss that, I guess I should give the other version of high beams. That was two variations of the same version, what I just told you. There's another one that I actually remember from when I was a kid. And me and Ryan were talking about this not long before the show, and I think we'll talk about it when we're on air. I remember as a kid, my mother saying that if you're driving your car at night and someone flashes their lights at you, their high beams, never flash back, because there's this urban legend that gangs use it as an initiation. They drive around at night, flash their high beams at people, and those people will, if you flash back, you become the target of murder in order to initiate new gang members. I don't think there's any case of that ever actually happening. Do you, Ryan? Do you know of anything?
I mean, where I grew up, we all flashed each other all the time.
I've flashed about 3 women today already.
Yeah, you probably come out to Vegas and probably get paid dollars on the strip. But yeah, there's way too much of that to be worrying about it. Like, no, I mean, but don't get me wrong. Like, there could be different regions where maybe there was like a collection of people who were doing this, like in an area per se. But I know where I grew up, this is nothing you had to worry about.
Yeah, and I don't know of anything. That may be one of those deals where there was one instance somewhere and it just caught on that gang members are doing this everywhere. I do remember driving in my mother's car with her at night, and I remember one time that happened. Someone flashed their high beams, and as a kid, my mind, it was like ingrained in there, and I got terrified, that she didn't flash back, of course, but you know what I mean. But anyway, so there's that story, the whole high beam type deal. What do you think about it, Zachary?
It's a great story. I mean, like you said, there's different variations, there's different names. There's that name, and there's also the killer in the back seat. It's a great story. It's super scary. Nobody wants anyone in their back fucking seat.
Which version do you like the best, and which do you think is the most
I
plausible?
like
Which one?
the high beams.
Yeah, but which version of it? Because both of those are called high beams,
Well, I
depending
like
on.
the killer in the back seat. I like the fact that the gas station attendant tries to help her, and and there's different versions of the fact that he didn't get to her in time and that she got back in the car, kind of like what the movie went off of. And then there's other versions that he did help her and the guy was caught or whatever. So, but either way, that's my favorite version.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think probably plausibility. Who knows? Anything can happen in this crazy world. But I could almost see the gang initiation being a little more plausible than the girl
The other
driving.
one sounds like he was trying to hit it. He's like, look, I was trying to save you this whole time. I was flashing you, trying to get your attention. The guy was right in the back. I swear he just went, in the woods. But, if you want to go in the woods, here I am.
You mean the driver behind her, not the creepy gas station?
Yeah, he was just trying to hit it. All that shit was a story.
Yeah, see, that's probably where the urban legend comes from, is a guy that just hit it, and then they added the shit later with the killer in the back seat to make it more interesting.
No.
All right. So, do we have anything else to say about high beams?
I think Ryan turned it up.
I think I'm right.
Ryan is creating all new urban legends.
Well, when he was talking about the first urban legend and he said internet, I'm like, this is already getting, because usually most things when I was growing up, any urban legend had nothing to do with internet.
Yeah.
So shows my age. We're at that point now. Urban legends during the internet era.
Well, now they don't call them, if they're urban legends, they don't call them urban legends on the internet anymore. Now they call it creepypasta. Same thing. That's the internet version.
You learn something new every day.
All right, so whose turn is it to pick this thing? Ryan's, I think.
I'll go.
Hang on, let me show you which ones
are left.
You even see, we got 1, 2, 3, and 5.
I'll go Iverson.
What's that?
3.
Right, you must translate.
I'll go number 3.
All right, number 3. Number 3 is called The Babysitter. This is probably one of the most popular ones because it's been used a number of times in a number of movies, amongst them being Black Christmas, When a Stranger Calls, and even Scream. Okay, this story is one that my uncle told me when I was a kid. So I like High Beams, the gang initiation version. I had some exposure to this when I was a child. Babysitter is this young girl. These are always a lot of these are about a young girl, I guess because they're supposed to be more easily victimized or something. I don't know. Nowadays, these urban legends would not make it very far. But in those days, they all starred young girls, innocent young girls. And this one is a babysitter who is hired to look after some rich people's children. Upstairs, the children are asleep when she gets there. So she just does some studying downstairs. At some point in the night, after the parents have left, she gets a phone call. And there's a man's voice on the other end of the line. And this man says, "Have you checked on the children?" And that's all he says. And she goes, "No, who is this?" And he hangs up. She goes back to studying. A little while later, she gets another call, and the guy says, "Why haven't you checked on the children yet?" It's the same man's voice. And again, he hangs up. So the girl's getting more freaked out because it's like, who is this? Well, third time's a charm. He calls up and he says, you need to check on the children. And at this point, she's like, look, hang up, calls the police. She tells the police, like, I keep getting obscene phone calls and it's really starting to freak me out. The police say, lock up the doors. If he calls again, we'll try to get a trace on the call. And so sure enough, he calls again and he says, "Have you checked on the children?" And she goes, "No." And she tries to talk to him a little bit to, so the trace can go through. After keeping him on the line for about a minute or two, he hangs up. And immediately the police call. And the police tell her, get out of the house right now. And he says, what? She says, what are you talking about? They're like, just get out of the house. So she gets out of the house, the cops arrive, and when they go inside upstairs, they find the children dead in their beds and a window open, and they realize that the man was in the house the whole time using a secondary line, calling her from upstairs, telling her to come check on the children after he had already murdered them. And of course, if she had come upstairs, he was intending to do the same thing to her. Now, that exact allegedly, that exact story is the opening like 10, 15 minutes of When a Stranger Calls. It's exactly that.
Once you count the remake and the whole stupid movie.
Yeah, the remake, the whole goddamn movie is that story. And it's the most boring, you know. I didn't care for the remake, obviously. But
how many times did he ask her to go check the kids? But when she's still saying no, like, wouldn't like a bell go off to be like, hey, maybe I should go check the kids?
Well, in
She's
my
a horrible babysitter. I mean, we've established that.
Yeah, what a dick.
well, in my version of the story, he did 4 times. But depending on how you, if you want to change it up a little bit, you could say he called, and that's the great thing about urban legends.
Wasn't that the movie Scream?
Yeah, Scream is. I think Scream was like a takeoff of When a Stranger Calls, which was a takeoff of this urban legend. But you know, that's the thing about urban legends is you don't know really where this originated. That the urban legend could have come from the movie When a Stranger Calls, for all I know. I mean, we don't have a date. Like in 1965, this story was first told. When a Stranger Calls came out in the late 70s. So people could have just watched that movie and just started telling the story as if it really happened. So that's the weird thing about urban legends and trying to discuss like their origins and so forth, is you really can never pin down an origin for almost any of them. I mean, maybe a few you could, like one instance that was absolutely documented, but that's pretty rare. With this particular one, it's a creepy story. I mean, it freaked me out when I heard it as a kid. There many horrible things have happened to babysitters over the years. Many have
terrorized mine.
Say what?
I used to terrorize anyone I possibly could. Like if you were in my house, yeah, it was bad for you. It was real bad. It was real bad. Yeah.
Did you ever have to babysit any children?
No, like I'm like only for like very short intervals, like where I let it be known, like, look, I'm not good at this. I don't want to be here. I'm gonna fuck this up. You know, like just not. I don't know. I got a very like not phobic. Like I like kids, you know, but I like kids when the parents are there. You know what I mean? When there's no like when there's no guidebook and like everyone, like my sister left me alone with her kids for like, I remember I was like in the 26th minute. I'm like, God, I want this to stop. You know, like
I mean, that's sort of the scariest urban legend of them all. It's just you get left with someone's fucking kids and you got to deal with them. I've never had.
I was a terror though. Like anything I could do to get any babysitter I ever had. Like I basically stopped with the whole babysitter thing very young. Like, but the very vivid memories I do of you know of having one, yeah, they didn't have any fun.
Well, I mean, going back to the story, do you think that there could be any that actually happened to anybody?
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, like kind of like Zach said, there's psychopaths everywhere, so I don't see why not. I mean, there was a guy the other day. He just burned his. I think he locked the kid in the car, like chained the door shut and burned the thing alive. I didn't read much of the story, what it was even about, but I mean that just happened. So yeah, it could definitely happen. It's not so much. It's kind of like that first one. It's not so much an urban legend. It's more just like murder.
Yeah. What about you, Zach?
It could happen totally. I love the story because it inspired some of my favorite movies. You know, like you were saying, you know, Black Christmas, the original, When a Stranger Calls, the original. All these movies, you know, is because of the story, and it's a great fucking story.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you never asked me if I babysat because that would have been just a dumb question.
Well, guess what? I'm about to ask you, Zach. Did you ever babysit?
Thank God, no, because like I don't know, I'd probably like a kid would never be the same after being in my apartment. You know, seeing the skulls and the scary crap I have in my apartment, and and then he'd go home talking to his parents about Jeffrey Dahmer, and it would just be horrible.
Well, I would like to kind of look into the whole, because the tracing of the twist in the story is that you find out that the cops trace the call and the killer is upstairs with the babysitter. I wonder, was that ever really a thing? Like, was that possible that you could just tap into a line and trace it? I mean, that would be a good way of telling if the story was bullshit or not.
Back like in the 80s and stuff, yeah, they could do that. Like before we had like the stuff we have now. I remember I can't remember what happened like when I was a kid, but I remember distinctly like, this is like before caller ID and everything, and they found it was in like my home. I don't even want to start get into the story because I can't remember what I'm talking about. I just remember that like specifically, yeah, they had a way to trace a call.
And you had to keep them on the line for a certain amount of time, and then you could sort of go from this box to this box, because that's how they show it in Black Christmas, which is
That's how they showed it in almost all Hollywood movies in the time. That was like the general, like, keep them on the line. Like that was a very common theme.
Yeah, and you saw the guy running at the phone, the telephone department or whatever, from one box to the next. And it's like, no, it's not this one. Oh, let's go over here. It connects to this one. It's pretty suspenseful in that time. Of course, nowadays is completely antiquated because everybody is traced all the time. I mean, the first thing that pops up on your telephone is who's calling you, which kind of would take a lot of the fun out of a lot of these stories. As soon as you leave the landline behind and get into caller ID and shit like that, that story completely loses its luster. It's sort of, I mean, I was talking with a friend of mine who is also in filmmaking, and we were talking about, the hardest thing nowadays is you have to figure out how the character is going to lose your fucking phone. Like, that's one of the key things you have to figure out when you're writing a horror screenplay is why don't they just call the cops? Why don't they just FaceTime somebody? I mean, it's becoming harder and harder to create these sorts of stories and have them be plausible because everybody's connected.
People have been killed on FaceTime though, so I mean, just being on FaceTime doesn't mean you're going to live.
That's true. That's true. But it does eliminate the idea of isolating a character the way you used to be able to in movies only, maybe 20 years ago. I mean, look at Scream. That came out in what, 1995 or 6? And the characters were still isolated with telephone calls,
Need to do a lot of stories in Vermont with just like some open woods.
Yeah, like no dead zones. That's about all you could do nowadays. You just have
like
all the characters.
Phil Jackson type character doesn't want to have any use of cell phone or anything else and just be left alone.
Yeah, that would be the easiest way of solving it. I know the last Halloween movie, and I talked about this on a previous show, the boyfriend just takes her fucking phone, throws it in a bowl of pudding. Like it's the weirdest way of losing a cell phone ever in a horror movie. But I guess it, does the trick. But anyway, I got off on that subject. I'm sure, Zach, you have more urban legends you want to tell us about. So far, most of the ones I've been telling. You got one in there. So let's give Zach a chance maybe to do, I'm going to let you pick, Zach, and maybe you'll pick one of your own.
Yeah.
That's, if you can't see that, that's 1, 2, and 5.
Okay, you know what? Let's go for number 1.
Okay, and this better not be one that I gotta tell. Let me tell you.
I have horrible luck, so it could be yours.
Suddenly, I'm thinking this randomizing the order is a bad idea. Fuck me, Bloody Mary. This is another one. This is another one for me to tell. Okay, here we go.
I told you I have horrible luck.
All right, so I guess my name is on the stories. So we've all heard, really, Bloody Mary is more of a game than it is a story, but it has a story behind it. For those of you who've never, like for the 5 of you who've never played Bloody Mary or even heard of anybody playing it, basically what it is you go into a dark room, theoretically a bathroom because a mirror is involved, shut the doors, turn out the lights, light a candle, look at yourself in the mirror by candlelight, and you say to yourself, Bloody Mary. Over and over again, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. Now, depending on who gives you the rules of this damn game, you could either say it 13 times, 4 times, 3 times, 6 times. Like all this urban legend shit, it's all up for whoever's telling you the rules of the game or whoever's telling you the story.
I heard 3 times.
See, I heard 3 times too, and then I was reading last night. It was like 13. I'd get tired of the fucking game before I got there. But the idea is that after you say it, however many times you're supposed to say it, Bloody Mary appears behind you and does a number of things, again, depending on who's telling the story. Sometimes she might just scream at you. Other times she might claw your eyes out with her taloned fingernails. And then other times she might curse you. Or she might rip your face off. Or she might rape you. Who knows? She could do any number of bad things to you in the darkness of your candlelit bathroom. Yes, Zachary.
I actually heard that if you do it on her birthday, it's her birthday or the anniversary of her death, one of the two, she leaves a bouquet of bloody roses on your sink or the back of your toilet. And if it's not that day, she'll kill you.
How do you know when it's her birthday?
Fuck, I don't know. I guess
she leaves. She leaves a bloody deuce right in your toilet. For those of you who don't know, that's the shit. That one landed with a loud thunk. Anyway, so there are many different. What a reaction, huh? There are many different versions of this. Sometimes it's called Hail Mary. Sometimes she's called Mary Worth. But generally Bloody Mary. There's also a version of the story where she's covered in blood when she appears. Now
they did it with Biggie Smalls on South Park.
They did what?
They did it with Biggie Smalls.
Oh, Biggie Smalls. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that works. That works. You can get Biggie Smalls back.
Well, that's a combination of Bloody Mary and Candyman. They ripped off this. We're going back to horror movies. They ripped off this legend for the Candyman thing because you look in the mirror and Candyman appears if you say his name. How many times were you supposed to say it, Zach? I don't even remember. You know.
Candyman was 8 times, I think.
Was it 8 times? See, that's one of those things. That's too long. I'm not going to sit there and say somebody's name into a mirror that much. I feel like an asshole. But the origination of the story, so they say, is this. They say back in the olden times, women used to hold up mirrors and walk backwards downstairs, saying this Bloody
It's already
Mary.
false. It's already false. I'm here to tell you, women can't do that.
Walk
It's
backwards
not in
down-
their DNA. It's just not in like, no, this story's already bad.
Okay,
but continue.
All hate mail should be addressed to Ryan Rayonec. That's Ryan.
No. Like I live in Vegas, and if there's one thing women don't do, it's like follow it like a direct path. Like there could be no space between you and the wall, and they have to go to that space if they've already thought like that's the way they were going. They can't have the path impeded. So you're already talking about like going backwards, and I'm here to tell you, it's just reality. Like I see it every day. It's not in their DNA.
RAYO.
I'll take all the hate mail. I'll take all the hate mail. Challenge. Tell me I'm wrong.
ONEC. That's in Vegas.
It's true.
Now, what happens in this story? So after they're walking backwards down the stairs, which I'm not even going to touch it, but Ryan says one thing.
In all fairness, my dad told me that when I was a kid, and I thought it was very sexist, and I thought I thought he was wrong. And then I grew up.
God. Hey, Zach, you want to jump in on this one, or Zach's like, no, I don't.
I don't agree with that. I don't want hate mail. I'm a quiet dude. Yeah, Bloody Mary. Yeah, Bloody Mary.
Well, okay, here we go with Bloody Mary. Like I was saying, where this originated was with any kind of person walking backwards down the stair with a mirror. Now, that shit doesn't work that way because part of this is If you did this, supposedly she would appear and show you either one of two things. Either Mary would appear holding a child, which meant you were going to be pregnant, or a skull would appear behind you in the mirror, and that meant you were going to die before you married or had children. Which, you know, in the old days was like a horrible thing. Oh, God, I'm not going to get married. That sounds to me like a blessing. But to them, it would have been a curse. Now, another sort of origin to this legend, they say Bloody Mary could actually be a representation of Queen Mary I of England, who was known as Bloody Mary historically because she had a lot of religious reforms that ended with a lot of people being murdered.
Satan's daughter.
Satan's daughter, that's right. Yeah, and they called her Bloody Mary. She also had a lot of miscarriages, which could explain where the version I just told you, which I'm not going to repeat again for fear of going down that road, with the child might have come from. Have you ever played Bloody Mary, Ryan?
Yeah, I did, and I was very disappointed.
Why?
I mean, unlike Biggie Smalls, nothing happened.
What about you, Zach? Did you ever play Bloody Mary?
Yeah, and I nearly had a heart attack because my dad's a jerk, and like he heard me.
I don't even know the story, and it sounds funny.
But like I was in the bathroom, and I guess he heard me the first two times, and he ran up to the other side of the door, and right when I said Bloody Mary, and like he banged that door so loud that like I thought my heart was gonna stop, and like, oh man.
See, that's the kind of thing I would do to my children, honestly. I would just hide in the shower, like with the curtain pulled, and just jump out at them and shit. Like put fake blood on my face and go for their eyes.
Go right for the eyes.
I used to, a cousin of mine, her
It's very
grandmother. It is effective. And like I said, a cousin of mine, their grandmother did that on Jaws. She didn't even like dress up as a shark or anything. She put on like a clown costume and hid in the closet while they were watching it. She was very young, you know, my cousin was a little girl and she wanted to watch Jaws. So they went into her bedroom and the grandmother snuck in there first and put like a crazy fucking clown mask on. And the first time the shark attacked, she came out of the closet like, crazy clown. Which is why my cousin doesn't watch horror movies anymore. She said she was absolutely traumatized by her first viewing of Jaws. So, congratulations. Here we go. The chances of me getting one where I have to tell it are now down to 0. But I'm pretty sure Ryan's going to pick one, and somehow I'm going to have to tell it. Ryan.
John Paxson.
Zach.
5.
Oh, okay. And then after this, I don't know which one we're going to pick. Number 5. Zach, which one are you going to do?
Whatever one is on the card. I'm curious.
This one is called The Kidney Heist.
Oh, okay. Kidney heist.
And that makes me curious, too. What the hell is The Kidney Heist, Zachary?
Okay. So a man goes on a business trip. He's feeling lonely. He goes down to the bar and meets a woman. They start having a few drinks together, and next thing you know, he wakes up in an unfamiliar place, freezing to death, and he realizes that he's in a tub of ice. He's having excruciating pains that he doesn't know what's going on. He sees a large cut that's been sewn up on his right here on his stomach, and he goes to a hospital and they tell him that he went under massive surgery the night before, and one of his kidneys was removed.
It's a bad beat.
So the woman that he was with drugged him and someone brought him to a random hotel and took his kidney, sold it on the black market.
Yeah.
Like this one is definitely one where like out of all of them, like yeah, this shit happens.
Oh no, it does. This one actually happens all the time.
It actually happened. Why do you say that? I mean, I agree with
Well,
Ryan. It does sound like something that would happen for
No,
sure.
well, no,
in
I
other
mean,
countries, the demand is such that like this is it's there's enough what's the word motivation for people in other countries who don't have enough to do something like this. And
three men in Africa were found in the dirt, unconscious, and their kidneys were removed. All three men.
3 men in Africa.
Yeah, they were found in the dirt. They didn't really remember anything. They were very poorly sewn up. When they were X-rayed, they realized that all three men's kidneys were missing,
it's
and
shocking they're not dead though, and because you would think like
they
you
were
would think it
nearly
would take a
dead.
skilled even a skilled surgeon removing your kidney. You would think like it's still a dangerous procedure, let alone guy in woods just removing it for his eBay account.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, now that I say it like that, fuck, I don't have enough baseball cards.
Do you have any kidneys to sell on eBay, Zach?
I played the fifth.
Hey, if times get hard enough, man.
I'm stingy. I don't want to sell my kid. I don't want to sell the kidneys that I own. I just save them, collect them, put them up on a shelf.
Yeah.
Gotta stink.
What?
Gotta stink.
Yeah. I just feel worse for my neighbors. I'm just joking.
You feel worse for your neighbors. All right, Zach. So is that the only evidence that we know that the kidney heist actually happened? Just these three dudes?
Yeah,
No, isn't there
yeah,
an epidemic of it? Like in this, like in China and a couple other like, isn't there like this goes on like a lot, not just like
yeah.
random cases.
There's been several cases. They're actually, from what I know, and this is not 100% proof. I don't want to sit there and lead people down the wrong road, but I actually read that in Amsterdam, a tourist actually was found in where he woke up in a tub of ice, and that happened to him. So I don't know if that was true or not, but
That dirty bastards. I've been to Amsterdam, and let me tell you something. I could see something like that happening there. I was sitting on.
Didn't they film Hostel there?
I think they filmed it in the country. I'm not sure, actually. I don't know. Where was Hostel set, Zach? I didn't like Hostel. Do you know where it was set?
at Czechoslovakia.
Czechoslovakia. I remember when I was in Amsterdam, I was sitting at a sidewalk cafe one time, and there were these people smoking, because they all smoke there on the sidewalk. And I look over in one direction, and there's like this line of guys taking like furniture out of a building, and I'm like, those guys don't really look like they're moving. And then I looked in another direction, and there was like a car driving across, not in the sidewalk, but it just like hit the curb and started driving across a square full of people, and the people just started like moving away. I mean, it wasn't speeding or anything, like it wasn't going through people, but it was just driving. Like it decided that I want to get to that side of the road, so I'm just going to cut across this crowd of people. It's a very loose place, Amsterdam. Very loose place. What are we saying, Zach?
Oh hell, I'm moving to Amsterdam. You can just like run people over there.
I want to play Grand Theft Auto in Amsterdam.
While you're doing it.
Hell yeah, I mean, it's a pretty place. A lot of like canals and stuff. Rode around on some boats, but it was pretty. You had to watch out when no matter where you were watching or where you were walking, a car might just. Actually, a friend of mine who was with me, the back of his foot got run over. He was walking across one of those squares, and a car did the same thing, cutting across. And my buddy turns around, and like there's a tire on the back of his shoe, and he falls back, kind of like his ass ends up on the hood of the car, and he slams his fist down on the hood of that car. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Because he's used to, like American laws of traffic. And the guy just kept going, just ran over the back of his shoe and just kept going. And I mean, Ryan, I can only imagine what you would do in that instance.
Well, Yeah, I kicked someone's door last week, but they didn't even hit me. But yeah, that happened.
Ryan's like, I ran someone over last week just for looking at me weird. Okay, so let's just.
No, but here you got to be careful though, because like you never know who's driving the car here. Because there's just so many different people in Vegas. Like you just never know. A lot of these people can't even read the road signs, and it's like obvious that they can't read the road signs. Like there's definitely some. Yeah, there's not so much murder here as there is just stupid people.
I may be opening a can of worms, but I'm kind of curious. Ryan, would you rather drive in Vegas or Russia?
I'm Russian and I've never been to Russia. Like it's on my to-do list. But I don't like the cold, so it usually stays on the to-do list. Like,
Well, the reason I ask that is because there's so much insurance fraud in terms of like cars. By law, you have to have a dashboard camera, which is why we get so many great pieces of YouTube footage of people crashing in Russia because everybody's got a car.
We should have to have dash cam cameras here. If I would have had a dash cam camera here, I would have had footage of the wreck I was in, and I would have known like who the other party was. Like could have got like insurance money instead of just getting shafted. So like I'd actually be in favor of, I'm sure other people would have reasons not to want one or, but I'd be all right with it.
And we should probably tell the audience, like you were in a crash where you just went flipping.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like when we first started doing these, I think I was going to tell your audience, yeah, I was in a really, really, really bad car wreck. So even now, like it's been over a year, it's been over a year. So I'm still having trouble. Like sometimes, not exactly myself. Like it could have been worse. Like I'm supposed to be dead. Like I'm 100% supposed to be dead. So like the fact that like there's side effects, okay, could be a lot worse. I could be paralyzed. But yeah, there's definitely side effects. I'll put it like that. I'm still dealing with it, but I try to do the best I can.
Well, I'm glad you survived that one. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here having this fun conversation. I wouldn't be here asking Zach which one he wanted to choose next.
A tough one. 2.
Number 2.
Al Gore.
Al Gore, allegedly. The licked hand.
Well,
this could get ugly.
I started this, and I guess I'll end this with a bang. This is actually my favorite urban legend of all time.
Let's hear it. So it starts with Al Gore sitting in a room. No, go
ahead. There's a woman, and she has really horrible anxiety problems, and she lives alone. And she doesn't talk. She doesn't have a lot of friends. She doesn't talk to many people. But all she has is her trusty dog. And her dog is always by her side. And every night when she goes to sleep, her dog sleeps on the floor next to the bed. And she reaches her hand down, and the dog licks her hand and lets her know that, it's all good. So one night, she does the same thing, her normal routine. She wakes up in the middle of the night to hear it dripping. And she's real disoriented. She doesn't know what's going on. She reaches down, the dog licks her hand. So she feels okay. So she goes back to sleep. But then when she wakes up, she finds her dog gutted and hanging from the ceiling. And written into a note next to the dog says, "Humans can lick too."
Humans can lick too.
So that was obviously not the dog that licked her hand when she woke up in the middle of the night.
Wow, that's a pretty good one.
Is this your favorite?
Because it's fucking creepy. Don't judge me.
Wait, how old is the woman?
I think she's supposed to be like college age.
Okay, it's not as bad as it was. Okay.
The reason why this is my favorite is because this was actually the very first urban legend that I was ever told.
Huh.
And that's one I have. You don't hear that one. That's a good one, but you don't hear it a lot. You said you were like 9?
I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I heard it from a friend's dad, and it's terrified me. And I mean, I heard other ones later on through life, but that was the very first one I ever heard, and it always stuck with me. And yeah,
Well, that's a pretty good one, though.
pretty creepy.
So that goes into the category of urban legends that you could call like escaped mental patient legends, because a lot of these, like the guy in the back seat, I assume the licked hand, he could have been an escaped mental patient and all this.
I mean, he has to be. Who's just licking people's hands? I mean, that's disgusting.
Well, there's the other one, that hook one, that's always an escaped mental patient, right? The one with the hook.
Yeah.
Which that one has probably been done a million times in movies, because you combined Bloody Mary with the hook, and you get Candyman.
That's true. That's very true. I never thought about it like that.
Well, now you have. I've blown your mind. What do you think, Ryan, about that last one, the licked hand? Do you think that's even something that might have happened at some time?
I mean, there's not a lot of consequence to it. It just sounds like a pervert, kind of like, I don't know.
It was Ted
Like,
Bundy.
It probably was, except he left the head. This is it's an inconsequential one. Like, okay, so your hand got licked. You know what? You can't.
Don't ruin my childhood, Ryan.
It's just like it's like a Sopranos ending.
Oh yeah, right, where it all cuts to black. Right. I don't know. Well, there are probably variations on the story, right? Where like the guy jumps out behind her or something. There usually aren't variations to these things.
That's the only story I've ever heard where people can lick too or humans can lick too. Those are the only differences that I've ever heard to the story.
And then there's that one that has Al Gore in it. It's like Al Gore and his dog. He lays down in bed.
Oh, does Al Gore lick hands? I'm not sure.
Al Gore does drink blood, though. I'm convinced.
Oh, here we go. Al Gore drinks blood.
I'm convinced.
Like there's anything wrong with that.
I mean, I don't know. Where'd you get it, and whose is it, and what did you do to it before it was blood? Would be my questions. Al.
So yeah, Bloody Mary. You've got to help me out eventually.
Didn't Keanu Reeves come out and say that though? Didn't he like come out and say like no, like a lot of people are drinking blood, like for real? Like that was like a genuine article, like out of his mouth. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I read that. Like it's within like a year or two. Like it wasn't even that long ago. And he was actually accusing like I just dislike Al Gore, so I'm linking him to it. But he accused a lot of people, I don't know. I've never actually seen anybody do it. I can't speak on anyone drinking blood, but if anyone does, it's definitely Al Gore.
What do you think?
Actually, that Peter Thiel guy, Peter Thiel actually admits to transfusing his blood. He uses teenagers' blood. The guy that started PayPal, I think that's him. If not, he's I forget exactly what he did. If that's not if I'm thinking of a different person, but I think he does it even every like 3 months, every 6 months. And this is documented.
Is he anemic?
No, he's obsessed with like basically keeping his like young energy / extending his life. I guess he's with that kind of money, he could have any doctor tell him anything he wants to hear. So when you've got all the money in the world and someone tells you, hey, like paying this kid, I actually even know I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I remembered like it wasn't hidden what he was paying the kid. Like he's actually paying the kid, like, which is like, my God, the kid's got to be like, I'm getting like a mansion every 6 months because this rich guy likes my blood. Like it's kind of like not the worst deal in the world for the kid, depending how much blood he's giving him. But
I think he's watched too many movies. I think that only works in movies where someone else's blood keeps you young.
But he's not the only one. This is actually catching on. The reason that you don't hear much about it is because it's more like the Wall Street trader, like, you know, at the top level who's had in the portfolio for years. And like, they're very concerned about, you know, longevity, which if you have that much money, you don't want to really leave this dimension. You know, we're not talking about the average, like, you know, the guy who plays baseball, it makes, you know, 14 million a year. Like these guys are making hundreds and hundreds of millions. They don't want to go anywhere. So
what about this blood? What about diseases?
I mean, I guess you would have to think with that much money, you'd have the kid like thoroughly checked. If you're just pot committed to, I'm gonna need this kid's blood in me. I mean, you would think you would spend no expense when you have all that money. You know, why would you? You know, like as long as he doesn't have, you know, AIDS or Russian herpes or.
I think we just created a new urban legend, actually, there, because I'd never heard that one before. I think we got a creepypasta, Ryan.
You can pull it up on Google. I'm pretty sure his name's Peter Thiel, like the guy who really started like being open about it. And like I know he's one of many, like maybe not many, because there's not a lot of, you know, there's not a lot of billionaires around to just be like, yeah, I need extra kid blood, but yeah, I mean.
Oh, God. Oh man, I know I need extra kid blood right now. What about you, Zachary?
Bloody Mary.
Yeah, you're just gonna stick with a Bloody Mary?
Yeah, she's gonna have to eventually help me, bitch.
Oh God, don't even go there. Oh man, what a fun, strange, really fucked up show this has been. I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed this wacky ride for the last hour. What about you guys?
Yeah, it was a good time.
We got to talk about a few urban legends. Zach, did you got to talk about the one that you really liked?
Yeah, we even made up a few. So
we did.
This has been an epic show.
This is like urban legends, new creepypastas, Al Gore. We've covered. I'm not even going to talk about everything we covered.
We should do it on Greg Popovich, that piece of fucking shit. God, that guy threw a basketball game like no one's ever thrown a basketball game before, and I'm a big basketball guy. And I just want to headbutt that. Like, while we have a few more minutes of internet here, like I just want to tell you to your face, Greg Popovich, you fucking suck. Like I'd like to headbutt you like into your fucking nightmares. Like, God damn it.
I think that's a new phrase I'm going to start using. I'd like to headbutt you into your own nightmares. God damn.
Stop fucking throwing basketball games, you motherfucker. You already got all them. Fuck.
Now, hang on. Let me just ask, because probably some people like me maybe don't know. Who is this?
He's the head coach of the Spurs.
Oh, okay.
And there was a situation where, I'll put it like this: if things are on the up and up, luckily I was watching fights that night. I had no money on it, so this isn't something where I lost, you know, $500 and I'm mad about. Like I had no actual connection to the game. I didn't actually get to see this till the day after. But what happened was, like, if you know basketball, they're down 4 without the ball, and there's like ridiculously low, like 26 on the clock, and the shot clock is 24. So basically, if you choose not to foul, you're saying I give up, the other team wins, and like party over, basically. So every basketball player in the world fouls at that point, because with that many seconds to go, you can still get the ball, you can still hit a 3-pointer, you can foul again. If they miss 1 of 2 each time, or if they have a trip where they go 0 for 2 from the free throw line, you're technically only 2 shots away from a tie game or a lead. Like, and it's game 7, there's no tomorrow. Like, there is no tomorrow. You can't be like, oh, well, yeah, we're gonna, you know, no, the series is over if you lose. And by the way, the point spread was 5. So if they fouled anybody, it would change the point spread, because it's a 4-point difference. If they fouled anybody, it would change the point spread. If they make a shot, it changes the point spread. So they chose to do not, like, if there was like 6 seconds left, you're like, fuck, we can't catch up. You know, like it maybe, like, and even then you're like, well, you're not even gonna try to foul. But with 27 seconds left and a 24-second shot clock, you don't foul. Like, I know you're not a sports guy, LC, but I'm like, God, like, I'm just the visions of headbutting this motherfucker. God damn it.
Into his own nightmares.
Like, stop rigging basketball, you piece of shit. Fuck.
I'm just staring at Zach's face, because Zach is just totally zoned out of this too. He's like, "What are you?"
I have like I am not a sports person either, so I swear to God, at some point you were like speaking another language. Like I was like, "What are you talking
Well, no,
about?"
that was
Like,
just basically for your audience. If your audience doesn't know why I'm pissed, because otherwise, for years, Pavlich is a pretty loved guy, like in the sport. Like it's not like I never had a problem. I respected him up until that game. After that, like even the players on the court, fuck all of you guys. You should never be in the NBA again. Fuck all you motherfuckers. Like, God damn, that was nasty. I'm so glad I didn't have money on that shit. But for the people who did, like, I'd still be mad. Like, that's bullshit. Stop rigging basketball. Fucking hashtag.
and on that note,
Hang on, time out. We're gonna have to do a continuation of this because we're out of time. So today's show was about urban legends, I promise. And today I had a couple of great.
allegedly,
I just imagine people were tuning in at the very end. They were like, "What is this about?" But we started on urban legends, and then we got more interesting. But no, next week we're going to have another interesting show for you. Until then, Ryan, thanks for joining me, man. Thanks.
No problem.
Zach. Zach, thank you for joining me too.
oh no problem, man. This has been awesome.
And for the audience, until next week, make sure to headbutt someone into their nightmares.